Hello, today I'm speaking with Lesley Pyne. Lesley believes that it is possible to have a fulfilling life as a childless woman. In her book, Finding Joy Beyond Childlessness, Inspiring Stories to Guide You to a Fulfilling Life, she uses her own life experience as a childless woman, those of 19 others, and her skills as a coach and NLP master practitioner to guide readers gently through the pain they're feeling and out the other side to find their joy again. Lesley spent the first 50 plus years of her life putting everything she didn't want to feel in a box, including her grief following multiple failed fertility treatments and the loss of both parents. In the process of writing this book, she dug deeply into the subject she writes about, including grief, letting go, connecting you to your body, self-acceptance, and writing. She writes openly about her challenges and how she has emerged as a different person, able to say confidently, "I absolutely love my life, the adventures I'm having, and I'm excited about what will happen next." Lesley, I'm so glad to get to speak to you today.
You too. I'm really pleased to be here. Thanks very much for inviting me. It's fabulous. Thank you.
So, if you will, please just tell us a little bit about your infertility journey and how you got to be where you are today, sitting here talking to me about this fabulous book.
Okay. Well, we started to try and get. I started to try and get pregnant when I was 35. Nothing much happened, and we were referred for IVF. That just sort of like a snowball thing. Over the next 6 years, 3 years, in fact, we had 6 rounds. I guess 35 was already probably quite late, but I didn't realise that at the time. So we decided to stop when I was 40. That was just our decision. We stuck to it, and that's 16 years ago now. Crikey! I joined a group, More to Life. You feel so very alone, don't you, when you come out of that treatment? And it was really lovely to have friends who were travelling the same path as us. But I didn't realise I was grieving. It all went into that box. And I remember walking down the road, actually about to cry after Mum died, taking the emotions out of my head and actually putting them into a physical box. And there they stayed, and they kept staying there until they wouldn't stay anymore. And the last, I guess, 18 months, I've been digging into my grief journey as in line with writing the book, so I'll come out the other side, definitely living a joyful life and as a different person. So bottom line.
And I mean, for somebody who's just hearing this idea for the first time, and I think I think many of us have put our grief into a box. I know I certainly did as well.
Yeah.
But it just seems like, I mean, we talk now very freely about a joyful life, but it's a big step, isn't it, from this, realizing you have this grief, stuffing it away, to coming out the other side. So can you talk a little bit about your process of actually taking that grief out of the box and dealing with it, and how you got to be where you are now, saying that life is good?
Yeah, I mean, growing up as you did too in the north of England, I didn't learn how to feel. And I, at one point, I went to, I'm a big fan of Brené Brown's work, and I went to Vegas to do a workshop based on her work. And in that workshop, I learned that feelings are called feelings because you actually feel them in your body. And I know I was 50 something when that happened, but I hadn't actually realised that. And at that point, I started to feel feelings and started to understand what different things felt like in my body. And then a couple of years ago, I started to work with a therapist, and that's been really, really helpful. And with her, we started to work with different things and to understand that when something comes up, to let it flow, not just to stuff it back down or stuff it into that box. I've also, the last sort of 18 months, been doing a lot of yoga, and that's incredibly helpful for me to feeling those things in my body. And understanding that, something comes up, let it go, And it's something else that's coming up for healing. I think my yoga teacher said I almost look happy when I'm crying, and I do actually, because I realize that's something else that's coming up and it wants to be healed, and just let it go.
Yeah,
that's it, bottom
yeah.
line.
I mean, it can be very cathartic, can't it? But
Absolutely.
it's hard to do. I think there's a fear that once you open that box, you might never put the lid back on it. But yeah, you really do need to work through that stuff,
Exactly.
and feel those feelings, and face that grief. And it's like you say, it's hard if you've not been taught that that's okay.
I think the other thing for me is I used to feel, my emotions range this much, if you like, but now they're a lot more. So by feeling more of the, if you like, the negative emotions, I also feel more joy, because I think when you numb everything. You numb the dark, numb the light. So the more grief and sadness and you let in, also the more happiness and joy.
That's great. Yeah, that's a great philosophy. So speaking about happiness and speaking about joy, it's a topic of your book, which we'll get to in a minute. But I wonder, something that's come up lately that I keep hearing from a lot of people is this idea of finding purpose again, when your plan was for parenthood, for motherhood. How have you gone about sort of finding purpose in your life again? And I know that you've obviously, like me, we're talking here, this has become part of our finding purpose. Sure. But obviously that's not for everybody to write and talk about openly about their experience. So could you maybe talk about some other ways that you have, found a way to find purpose and joy in your life again?
And I think I might just take issue with you on the word purpose, because I think sometimes it's hard to find that. And I do love Elizabeth Gilbert's work a lot, and she talks about follow your curiosity, which seems to be a difficult word to say, but so it's like find things that you're interested in. That's been great for me, actually. Just thinking, I used to do, when I was little, I used to do a lot of sewing, embroidery, and I've started sewing again. Stuff it's not perfect and it might not be pretty, but it's great. I enjoy it. And so it's just finding little things that you might be interested in and follow that. And if it takes you somewhere, that's absolutely fabulous. And if it doesn't, that's also fine. Try something else, So I'm in a choir. I really love that. The singing is great. Reading, just find just lots of little things that I'm interested in. Follow that. See where it takes you.
I agree with that. I did a lot of that myself, and got myself back out into nature again, which is something that I love, and got my garden going again. So I have a vegetable garden going, which I really enjoy.
Mine's got a bit neglected.
Want some courgettes?
My garden's neglected these last few months. Books tend to take a little
we would do that. So I mean, it's sort of fun to explore some of the things that you used to love to do as well, and find that joy again. So the other thing that you've done, of course, is you've really embraced your journey and your experience and put it into your work. So can you just tell us, when people come to your website, what they're going to find there? What is sort of the focus of the work that you're doing now?
Well, I mean, I'm not working with people per se. What you will find is selling the book, one thing, and also I blog. So it's about support and finding your way gently to that, giving tips and guidance as to find your way gently to that place. There's also in the book I've got 19 other stories, yours of course included, and you'll find lots of stories there, the inspirational stories I call them. So people like both of us who've come out the other side, not just it's saying what we actually did. So there's a bit about how we got to that dark place and then how we came out. So support gently, a bit like yours really. It's very similar.
And I think hearing other people's stories is so important too.
It is.
Like you said right at the beginning, you feel so alone. And I remember feeling like I was the only person in the world that this had ever happened to. So hearing those other stories, I think, is really encouraging. And you know, especially sort of seeing the dark places that people started from, and where they get to on the other side. Because at the beginning there, sometimes it feels like you can't possibly see your way to any happiness in the future.
Exactly.
So.
I think that, and there's a quote, well, it's, if you can't see it, you can't do it. So, and turning that round. I mean, I don't know, when I came out of treatment, there was very few resources available, and you know, I had some great friends, but we were all at the same stage. And really, what have I got in common with Judi Dench, or you know, Helen Mirren, or you know, sort of various Oprah people like that? But then I found your book and Pamela's book, and that really helped. And that's why I've included the stories in here in the book, because we're all normal, aren't we? We're all normal people, and by seeing that I've got to where I am, you've got, and there's, you know, there's other people who aren't blogging. There's, you know, most of the people have used their own name, not all of them, but we're all sort of just normal run-of-the-mill women who've got to that fulfilling life. And so by seeing that, you can do it too. I think that's really key.
Yeah, I think that's great. Well, tell us about the book then. Let's have a look at your beautiful cover.
I love the cover. It's fabulous, isn't it?
Finding Joy Beyond Childlessness. Yeah, I love that cover. It's fantastic. So tell us a little bit, if you will, about the book.
Well, it does what it says on the tin, as they say. You probably don't have that advert in the States, do you? But yeah, so I used my story and 19 others from, and take people. I use the butterfly metaphor throughout, I think, because it's that you need to pull yourself apart a bit in the middle before you can come out the other side. And I think, you know, for me, it's like, I always thought, you know, we always thought we'd be a mother. And I thought that now that I'm not, I don't know what colour and shape my wings are. So it's about working out what colour and shape my wings are. So I use 3 acts. The first bit that give you some resources to start, and then there's the various ways through grief, and then pulling yourself back out. And you know, I think there's you listed some of the chapters before, and it's like there isn't one way. There's not one way into this place of childlessness, and there isn't one way out. You know, so try different things, I think. And yeah, each chapter's got some journaling questions as well, so it'll, you know, if you work through those, get to the other side.
Fantastic. So what can we expect from you for the future? I know that your book is just out, so you probably can't see much further than the end of each day, but I
don't know, actually. I have no idea. I think, you know, I'll still be there, probably doing what you do, you know, selling the book, blogging, supporting in different ways. There's a lot of material in here, isn't there, to share. I should just also add that, if you know, we did a conversation. We had a conversation before, didn't we? And that if you buy the book, there's some extra bits that you can get hold of. Lots of interviews with people like yourself and others. So yeah, it's I don't know. Other than that, I think I'll go for a lie down somewhere. That's
yeah. So I'm going to sort of circle back around and ask you, you know, if you are speaking to a woman or a man who is where you were 16 years ago, who's sort of come to the end of that journey of trying to be a parent, maybe come to that, what I call the line in the sand, where you know, this is the place that I have to stop, the line that I can't go across. So I mean, what would you say to somebody who was finding themselves in that situation right now?
I guess two things is that to act, as we talked about, that is grief. So acknowledge it as grief and work with it as grief. And the second thing is that it is possible to have, you know, you can get through it. Not everybody does, but you can. Not everybody does because they don't choose to do, should I put it that way. It is possible to get through it. There's some work to be done, and only you can do that work. But as you know, we both know, you can get out the other side. It is absolutely possible.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm just going to latch onto that thing about, you said about sort of choosing to do it and doing the work. So I know that a lot of people just feel that they are stuck. They're reading the books, they're joining in the blogs and the communities, and they just feel like they just can't get past it. So do you have some advice for when people really feel stuck like that?
I don't know. Maybe it's because they're not doing things. I mean, time passes, doesn't it? But you've got to do is doing things. So it's all very well to read or blog or read blogs or read books, but you actually have to do the work. Maybe writing. Maybe start with writing. I would say. I know we talked about this before. It's that sort of start with writing, journaling, writing, getting everything out of your head. But you have to do the work. It's not just enough to listen and read. There's work to be done.
Yeah, I'm afraid that's true. I mean, that was a slow lesson for me to learn, and you as well. But
yeah, exactly.
If you ignore it, eventually it'll just go away.
Exactly.
But it doesn't really work like that, does it?
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Unfortunately, but it's worth doing. That's the other point, I guess. Absolutely worth doing. I'm happier than I've ever been, living a fabulous life. So, and it is, it's absolutely possible to have that. So go for it.
Go for it. So speaking of fabulous lives, what's your next big adventure?
Because
I know you've always got something coming up.
we are heading across the pond into the States in the end of later in the year. So we've got, out into the countryside, but I haven't really thought much further than the book at the moment. But there'll be something bigger next year, because our silver wedding next year, so we'll have to do something bigger.
Wow, congratulations. As my brother always says, you get less time for murder.
my husband says
My husband does not. Maybe he didn't. Okay. Leslie, it's always such a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much. Please give us a flash of the beautiful book once again, Lesley Pyne, Finding Joy Beyond Childlessness. And you can find Lesley, make sure I get the correct website, at lesleypyne.co.uk. And under the video, I'm going to post all the other places that you can connect with Lesley. Lesley, thank you so much for speaking to me today. It's always a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.